wonderful people. My name is Tara and I'm so glad to have you here. In this video, I will give you a few life lessons I learned from the first season of Sex Life. For those who've forgotten or just didn't see it, here's a quick synopsis. In this Netflix original, Billy, Cooper, and their 2 children live a seemingly perfect life in the suburbs until a walk down memory lane threatens to destroy their lives as they know it. There's a lot to unpack, so let's get into it. Life lesson number 1. There's usually more than one imperfection. Throughout the series, Billy says that sex is the only thing that's wrong with her marriage. But I beg to differ. She doesn't have any close friends or family there. She didn't complete her PhD program. She isn't working a full-time job in her career field. She left behind her life in the big city, a life she had dreamed of her whole life, a life that she cherished. And her husband is not attentive or affectionate. He comes home from work, plays with the children before he ever throws a glance Billy's way. He's more concerned with cutting the grass, watching the game, or just anything else besides paying his wife some attention. When they do have sex, he's more wrapped up in the game than pleasuring his wife. With all things considered, it's really not surprising that she's fantasizing about this past life, or more specifically, this past relationship. In every relationship, even the good ones where both parties are highly invested and attentive, there are imperfections. Sometimes these imperfections are so tiny, they are not perceptible from the outside looking in. And they are not noteworthy. Definitely not something worth breaking up over. However, these imperfections, even the tiny ones, can become a greater issue over time. And sometimes all it takes is one unacceptable factor to make a person question their whole relationship. Billy and Cooper's relationship is a good example of what I am describing. From the outside looking in, their marriage would seem perfect, and she would seem crazy to ever consider leaving or cheating on this good man. In fact, this show spends a lot of time reaffirming the greatness of Cooper and the life they've built together, all in an attempt to shame Billy for wanting something greater or wilder than what she already has. But honestly, she doesn't have much of a life outside of her husband and children, and that can be overwhelming for anyone. This is not to minimize the life she has with her husband and children, but it is to say that no matter how great your partner is, how much you love your children or life in general, there will always be some imperfection, usually several of them. It's not about finding a perfect love. Instead, it's about deciding what imperfections you are willing to cope with and grow through together. Life lesson number 2. Admiration isn't enough. When Cooper asks Billy if he's a really long rebound, she treats the question as if it's absurd. But is it? They met 1 month after her relationship with Brad ended. Cooper is the complete opposite of every guy she's ever dated before. He is thoughtful, chivalrous, safe, and all the other things that good girls supposedly want. Very early in their relationship, Billy made the decision to put away certain parts of herself, a plan she never abandoned. In fact, Billy refers to her life before marriage as a whole other version of herself that her husband does not know. Now, years later, he isn't wearing his passion for her on his sleeve in a way that she can see and feel. So her mind is drifting to a spicier, more liberated time. This walk down memory lane brings down all of her unresolved feelings for Brad. And before long, she's comparing Cooper to Brad. And to make matters worse, the dinner that was supposed to dampen her husband's suspicions blew up in her face. Instead of soothing away his jealousy, it only convinced Cooper that he was Billy's B-grade consolation prize. With all things considered, it's hard to disagree with him. She says Cooper was her life raft, even if he doesn't know it, which I find interesting since life rafts can't usually be built upon or withstand too many pricks. For the most part, they are for emergencies, not for everyday life or multiple use, which further solidifies the idea that she used Cooper to heal her broken heart. 8 years later, She doesn't necessarily need a life raft. Now that she isn't heartbroken and her nice guy isn't giving her the attention and affection that she desires, the dream of a life with Brad that she buried so long ago is beginning to look good. So she has to constantly remind herself that what she has with Cooper is good and that she would be a fool to let this good man go. Keep in mind, at no point in this story does she speak in real depth about her love for her husband. Instead, she lists all the things about him that she admires and approves of. Even when she thought he had taken the kids and left her for good, she did not think on her love for him specifically, but the idea of losing everything for the sake of the 15% that was missing in her life. When he was gone, she ran around the house beating herself up for wanting it all. It is clear that she does not love him. She simply has great admiration for him. While admiration is a great thing to have in a marriage, I'm not sure that it's enough to hold a marriage together because it tends to fade. Not to mention, people can tell when you don't love them, especially when you're yearning for a very attainable person that you do love. Also, you can never truly have a free and honest relationship with someone that you hold such a high esteem for because you can never share the not so respectable parts of yourself with them. This is the real reason she hid certain parts of herself from her husband. Let's be honest. This is the reason we all hide certain parts of ourselves from our loved ones, which brings me to my real question. Is it reasonable to desire or expect partnership with someone whom you can share your whole self with, not just the respectable or acceptable parts? Tell me down in the comments what you think. Life lesson number 3. Be careful about assuming you're the only person who knows your partner or ex deeply and intimately. During their first encounter, Billy runs down a quick psychological profile of Brad. He takes her back to his place and asks her to trust him. She admits she shouldn't have, but that she did completely. According to her, he eventually trusted her as well. She said the intimacy of their conversations was intoxicating. She especially enjoyed being the only person on planet Earth who got to see underneath his hard rock shell. As exhilarating as getting to know a partner deeply and intimately may be, you probably should be careful assuming you're the only one who does. And here's a few reasons why. This idea that I'm the only person who knows these things about this person often leads to a false sense of empowerment, especially when these things are learned fairly quickly or feel very intimate. It can become the grounds of your relationship and the thing you hold on to so tightly that you find yourself excusing inexcusable things. We see this happen when Billy meets Brad's mom for the first time. Things go great until Jonathan, Brad's stepdad, shows up. Jonathan was a jerk. Things went badly quickly, and Brad ended up breaking up with Billy. She begged him not to push her away, swore she knew him and that he didn't mean it. In response, he said, "You think you're so special, Billy, but guess what? You're not. You're not special." He then got in a cab and left her standing near the road crying. Later, he came to her apartment, made a scene, and she agreed to hear him out. He told her this sad story about being abandoned by his biological father and cried. She kissed him and all was well again. Such behavior became the pattern of their relationship. Over and over, he pushed her away, broke her heart, apologized, shared an intimate detail about himself, and she'd take him back. She'd hold on to that sense of intimacy so tightly that she'd overlook all the unhealthy patterns of their relationship. Which leads to my second reason why we should be careful assuming we're the only person who knows our partner intimately. It is unlikely that you are the only person who knows these things. This is not to undermine the intimacy of anyone's relationship, but realistically, there's always at least one person who has known your partner longer than you, even if that person is their family member. Combine that with all of their experiences outside of you and their previous relationships, and it's a good chance you are not the only person who has seen under their hard exterior. Also, many people are really good at making others feel special even when they are not. Such people understand that if I give you the right bits of me, you will give me all, most, or at least the parts of you that I want. And now for my final reason. So what if you're the only person who knows these things? People share non-incriminating things about themselves with strangers all the time. As crazy as it may sound, some people find strangers easy to talk to because it is very unlikely that they will ever speak to them or see them again. I say none of this to suggest that intimacy in a relationship isn't a wonderful thing, because it is. After all, intimacy and trust go hand in hand, and it is very hard to have a long-lasting relationship without the two. However, an overappreciation for intimacy can be used against you. A perfect example of this is when Billy catches Brad kissing a random woman at her cousin's wedding. In that moment, she recognizes the pattern, her role in it, and decides to not participate in it anymore. But he opens up to her emotionally, tells her about how he believes the universe took their baby because he'd be a terrible father. She reaffirms him and tells him that she can't be with him until he deals with his daddy issues. He ends up blaming her for pushing him too far and puts her out of his loft. This is how their on again, off again relationship ended 8 years ago. And the most mind-boggling part of it all is that she ends up begging him. This sort of a thing happens more often than you would presume, because one partner believes the intimacy that they share makes the relationship worth fighting for no matter what. Comment below. Have you ever fought for an unhealthy relationship? Now I know someone's watching this asking, did you like this show? On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I would give Sex Live 2.9 stars. While it lends itself well to an interesting conversation about marriage and dating, it seems to be more interested in tantalizing or arousing its audience than telling a complete cohesive story. Both Brad and Cooper are one-dimensional. Cooper is good, Brad is bad. We are constantly reminded of this. Furthermore, over 90% of Billy and Brad's relationship is presented through her memory. And almost every one of those memories include mind-blowing sex, danger, or breaking rules. It's very disappointing to me that we never see the supposedly good old days as they are happening, because the average person's memory is fallible. She even admits that she tends to forget the bad stuff, which means she is comparing Cooper, a man she deals with on a daily basis, to a romanticized version of Brad, someone she hasn't seen in years. Simply put, Sex Life is a lackluster show to me. But I am interested in seeing how things unfold between Billy and Cooper in season 2. Now it's your turn. Don't forget to share, subscribe, hit the bell, and/or tell me your thoughts down in the comments. Did you like it? Did you learn anything? Or was it just a good time?